morning.
Good morning, Nancy.
Yeah, we are live. I just validated our events page on LinkedIn. We're live. Good morning, West Coast, and I guess happy lunchtime on the East Coast. Welcome, Akansha, to my live stream.
I'm so happy to join you, Nancy. Great to have you. Great to be here, and yeah, excited to talk about
Yay!
PM practices today.
Yes, so I was just looking at your Korea website, and I noticed that you've had over 100 something bookings so far, and you haven't opened up your calendar for a long time. It's been how long? A month, 2 months?
It's close to 2 months now. Yeah.
Tell us about all the conversations that you've been having with your mentees, and also let's introduce ourselves first.
Please, you go ahead first, Nancy.
Okay. Well, hello everybody. My name is Nancy and I am a PM coach. I run these live streams with other coaches and other experts um, who are really passionate about sharing their expertise. And our hope is to just put our knowledge out there, and hopefully we're able to answer people's questions. Hopefully people feel less lonely, whichever part of the journey they're on, and that's why we love to come together and just collaborate.
Great. What you do is amazing, Nancy.
Thank
So
you.
inspired by you. I can quickly give my intro.
Yes.
I am Akanksha. I'm a PM at Microsoft. I've been a PM for a year, and before that, I was a software engineer for a couple of years. And this is what I normally like to help people on. There's surprisingly a lot of people who are in the same journey, trying to get into like a product management role. So I realized that this is something I could kind of share with the community and help a lot of people on, and that's why I'm here.
Yay. And tell us about all the conversations that you've been having since you opened up your calendar on Korea.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have talked to a lot of students. I've talked to early graduates, professionals who have worked for quite long time, like 10 years, and they are all looking to kind of do something new in their career. And
Mm.
product management is something that's on top of their mind. It's a very hot career right now. So I help people kind of put into perspective of on how they can switch to a PM job and how they can leverage their existing experience, like while switching, like while getting their first PM role. So that's the
Mm.
major focus of these calls. Sometimes there are people who are, for example, are laid off and they just want to kind of get some guidance on how to navigate that. So really empathize with those people in my calls.
Oh, and have you noticed any themes or patterns in these discussions?
Definitely. I mean, the main theme is how do I make it happen without having real PM experience? There are some
Mm.
people who are doing PM internships. There's some people like me who are software engineers, zero PM experience at all. People coming from all sorts of background, and they want to like make like have that PM role without going to like MBA or doing another degree just about like being a PM. So that's my main focus of these calls.
I see, I see. And you have a very amazing fast track transition from engineering to PM. It only took you 6 months to transition. Tell us how you did it.
Absolutely. I think the first one is research like extensively. I did not, when I joined Microsoft as a software engineer, I did not focus on like kind of being a PM right away. This is something that I found as a result of working with amazing PMs within my team. And they were nice enough to kind of let me in some of the calls where I was not required, like design discussions, calls with the UX researchers and stuff like that. That gave me a lot of perspective. And I found a mentor in my team. So mentors are extremely important in kind of like pushing you, telling you what you can do and what you should do, and shadowed that mentor for some of their like small nitty gritty PM tasks. And after that, talked to quite a few people who have transitioned from software engineer to PM. try to know their journey. And there was one theme that was kind of coming up again and again, is like, get experience, get the actual job experience, and you will be able to transition without any like prior official PM experience. So I sort of volunteered at a nonprofit, and I think that was the point where my transition like accelerated. I was sure of like becoming a PM through that volunteering opportunity. I took a course where I learned about PM interviews and how to like crack different areas of a PM interviews.
Okay.
And then I made my manager an ally in Microsoft. So I was transparent with him. When I was sure of the decision, I was transparent to my manager. And then I sort of took it from there and gave interviews internally.
So, if I were to summarize, first you joined Microsoft as an engineer. At that time, you didn't know about product management yet, or you weren't interested yet at that time in the beginning?
I wasn't interested. I did not
Okay.
know what a PM does.
Okay, okay. And then you've been an engineer for a few years, right? And
Couple-
then you worked with PMs, of course, and then you started to gain more interest.
Yes, exactly.
And then you expressed your interest to the PM team, and they invited you to attend other PM meetings.
hmm
And then you got more interest, and then you decided to gain more experience by volunteering at a nonprofit.
Yep.
And then through that nonprofit experience, you felt more assurance that this was something that you wanted to pursue.
hmm
And then you took a course to prepare for the PM interview. And I guess in parallel, you told your manager about it.
Yes.
And then how did you, how was that transition from telling your manager to actually interviewing?
So my manager was extremely helpful. I have been very lucky to get supportive managers at Microsoft, and he was extremely helpful. He was a bit sad because I was leaving the team, but he was like, "This, I know you will be a great PM. You have demonstrated those skills, so I will connect you with the hiring managers." So he actually put a word with the hiring managers, and then they reached out for interview.
Oh, that's so nice. And then did you join the same team that you were on, just on the product? You joined a completely different team.
Different sister team, yes.
Oh, I see. And did you work with that team before? Did they already know you?
No, not at all.
Wow. So I think your manager had a key role to play
hmm
in your transition, right?
He was my sponsor then. Yes.
So helpful. It's so helpful to have a sponsor. And so a little bit of story about myself. I also transitioned from engineering, but my transition wasn't as smooth. It took me about 1 year to
Oh,
get the actual PM title. And how I switched was I was working at Oracle as an engineer, and I became more and more interested in the PM job the more I worked with my PMs. Um, and at this time, I was maybe 4 or 5 ish years into my engineering career, and because I've also been at Oracle for a long time, I wanted to work at a startup
mhm.
because at that time I've never worked at a startup before, and I decided to interview for product management roles, and of course, no one would interview me. And recruiters would tell me to join their startups as an engineer first and then become PM later. But I wasn't interested in that path. But because I didn't have any chance outside of Oracle to get into product. I talked to my manager at Oracle about it. They were not very receptive at first, but I just kept on talking to them.
Mhm.
And I also talked to the PM team. I talked to the PM manager to see if they would give me a chance. But after a lot of conversations, they said, as an engineer, you're so focused on your module, you don't know end to end.
Yeah.
So you should do QA first. I was like, sure, I'll do whatever. So then I started doing QA work. And I was doing it in parallel as my engineering work. So I was working with a QA team. I was executing QA scripts. I did that for maybe 3 months ish. And then I wanted to, get on with the PM journey. I said, okay, I've been doing this for 3 months now. I've been executing QA scripts. Now I know end to end of this product, which was the procurement product, like huge B2B product, right? And then at the time, the PM manager said, our VP doesn't think you would like the PM job. And then I said, but the VP doesn't even know me. Because at this time, I'm just one of the many engineers on the floor. I have very little interaction with the VP. So, how would the VP know what I would like?
Mhm.
And I said, give me something to do. And then the PM manager at this time said, well, okay, you would need to write PRD and then you have to present your PRD to the VP. I was like, yes, I'll do that. But of course, I didn't really know what it was. I just wanted to do whatever it took, right? So I took some time to work on a PRD on a feature, got it reviewed, and then presented it. And then they said, okay, I guess you could do the PM job. Do it. I was like, yes. So
Awesome.
then at this time, so this has been at least 3 months has passed since I tried to interview outside of Oracle. So then this time I was like, okay, I'm going to stay at Oracle instead of interviewing outside because I actually have a chance. But they didn't change my title. I still have my engineering title. And I didn't understand why they wouldn't change it. Um, but it didn't really matter to me because I just wanted to get experience. So then I started to do more and more of the PM job and less of the engineering job. I did talk to my manager. I said, look, I just want to switch completely. I think they were worried that I wouldn't like it. So they never really made that switch for me. Um, but then I did the PM job for another 6-ish months. And then I said, yes, this is what I want. And then they said, okay, let's work on changing the title. So I actually never had to interview to become a PM internally at Oracle. That was very nice of them. But because at this time, it's maybe 9 months have passed since I tried to interview outside, and I still wanted to leave Oracle. So I started my job search process again outside of Oracle. And I actually went back to one of the startups that talked to me that's who said I didn't have enough experience. I said, okay, now I have more experience. And then they interviewed me this time around. And that's how I became a official product manager with an official title. So my journey was about 1 year.
Oh wow, Nancy, this is so inspirational that you stuck through all of that and you kind of persevered and you were like, no, this is what I really want to do, even if your manager and your VP were kind of swaying you away from that. So that's amazing.
Yeah. I can't explain how I did it. It just felt like, and also this was 12 13 years ago, so I'm not really remembering all the details vividly, but it just felt like I knew that this is what I wanted. And also at the same time, I didn't feel that I was a very good engineer.
Hmm.
Probably because I didn't feel the passion, but I was really drawn to the product management role and just kept on going toward what felt good and what felt right.
Yep, makes sense. I would just like to add, like in my experience, it might come off like as my manager I just talked to my manager on a whim. But like I really trusted my manager and basically since I was on a visa, I am still on a visa at this point. I really wanted to like make sure that when I talk to my manager, it's not going to affect my visa status or my current job or anything. I wanted to be sure before I went down that path. And definitely, I recommend that to everyone when I talk to them on my calls that you should have conviction in yourself first and then kind of spread that conviction to everyone else.
Absolutely. And also when people didn't believe or when people didn't think that I would like the PM job, I also didn't really know if I would like it. It just felt like I would, but without really trying, I didn't really know. So it was also a good idea to try to do the job and then decide, yes, this is what I wanted. It's very similar to how you were working at the nonprofit and then you felt, yes, this is what I wanted, and
Mhm.
then you took the course and then you interviewed and all that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I see the comments coming in. Um, to this LinkedIn user, it sounds like switching to PM role within a company is the most optimum way to go. I would say yes.
Yeah.
I would say absolutely yes if you can. And part of it is because you've already built a relationship with the people that you're working with. They could see your potential. They know you, even though you've not been a PM, but they probably could see you in that role, versus a brand new company who don't, no one knows you. It's just easier to do internally if that's possible.
Yes, I would agree. Because I would just like to add a little bit onto it. If you don't have a formal product manager or a PM, any kind of PM, product, program, project manager title on your resume, it's extremely hard to get interview calls from external companies. So if you try to sort of apply to companies outside of your current company and you don't have a PM role, it's hard. But I can shed some light on like how to get that PM title on your resume. Just for context, I got interview calls from startup and one startup and Pinterest as well for a PM job. Um, but yeah, I chose to stay with Microsoft for the reasons you just said.
I see. Cool. All right. Audrey. Audrey made a comment. They weren't worried you wouldn't like it. They wanted to retain you in your current role. I think you're right, Audrey. Like, thank you for calling that out. And also, it's not really in their best interest to to switch. But I'm glad that they at least gave me a chance. Yes, I hear some. I have construction going on outside. Is it picking up in the mic?
I can hear it a little bit.
I
Yeah.
hope it's not too distracting. Okay, so we have questions from people, from the audience who submitted during the sign up. So let's go over the questions together. All right. First question is, if you're to give only one option or one way to pivot to PM, what would that be? I think you already touched on this.
Yeah, I touched on this a little bit. I can really expand on that right now. Get experience as much as possible. So if you have ideas for side projects that you can do and include in your portfolio, your website, or even like post on LinkedIn, you can definitely start doing that and sort of gain that PM experience. What I did was very helpful for me. I volunteered for a nonprofit called Be Good Project, and I volunteered for about 6 to 6 months and 6 to 7 months, and basically learned the job with people who were experienced, who were kind of coming in from all sorts of background, and learn how to be a PM in actual real life projects. That gave me an edge over if I hadn't done that job and kind of didn't have that actual experience, because I could really show to people who I was talking to that I can do the job. So get experience. Try, if a volunteering is not feasible for you, you can always do side projects, but volunteering will only take 2 to 3 hours of your week. So if you can kind of give that a slice of your time, it's worth it.
I didn't know the volunteering thing was only a couple hours a week. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Thanks for sharing.
Definitely happy to. And obviously, like, side projects should be shared. So build your portfolio, build your profile. That's really important.
Okay, we have a question from the audience. What was the course you took and found helpful?
So yes, I'm a PM. Just answering the beginning part of the question. So the course that I took was Product Mastermind. It was offered by PMs from Google, LinkedIn, and Slack. If you know Shivi, she's a PM at LinkedIn, very active on LinkedIn Learning. She was one of the mentors in that course, and that course was designed around PM interviewing and skills that like people need to gain before getting a PM job. So that was mainly focused on like interviewing and kind of developing skills. I would really like recommend like courses in Exponent or like Stellar Peers, websites like that, which teach you like what an interview at least consists of, and then maybe think about like what are your skill gaps of becoming like an actual PM. So that's the approach that I took, and it was beneficial because I got to know a lot of other people who were trying to switch to PM, and kind of work with a cohort and a community to kind of make that happen.
Makes sense. We have a clarifying question from Vivian. What was the
So
volunteering one?
yeah, sorry. I volunteered as a product manager in an NGO which is called Be Good Project. I found it through one of the volunteering websites. It's called volunteeringmatch.org, and you can find opportunities that match you. There are a lot of NGOs who are looking to make digital products, and they're looking to hire software engineers and PMs for volunteering. Just FYI, they won't pay you, but it's good for the experience.
Great. Let's go back to the questions that were submitted from the audience ahead of time. Let me go back to my previous screen. I love to learn how to leverage other experience in tech to get your first official product role.
Makes sense. I think we touched a lot of that in our conversation earlier about how we got our PM role. But coming from software engineering side, I think that PMs who have that technical background get a really good grasp on how to talk to their engineering counterparts. As a PM, especially if you're in a tech company, you would be talking to your engineers almost every day, trying to figure out if how the design is for a product or feature, if they are on track, what are the technical blockers, and how can you help them kind of resolve that. So that can happen with any role, right? So PMs work with a lot of finance people, they work with UX, design, customers. So PM has a multifaceted role in that respect. And if you come from any sort of experience, let's say if you're coming from a design experience, you already know how design works, right? If you're coming from finance, you already know how the business side of things work. So leveraging that, and when you're a PM, is important because as a PM, I talk to different people every day. So especially when I'm talking to engineers, I'm most confident. But yeah, you can leverage any sort of experience for your first big goal.
Yeah. So this question hasn't really come up for me just because I made the switch more than a decade ago. But I remember earlier on in my PM career, this I used to sell myself by leaning into my experience in engineering. So I would tell the hiring manager, or I would tell the engineering manager during the interview, or I would tell the recruiter that I understand how engineers think. I understand the do's and don'ts that a product manager should do or don't do when they're working with engineering. So, for example, engineering doesn't like when the PMs try to get into the weeds because that's not the PM's job, right? So, I would frame it in that way. Coming from an engineer, knowing how engineers would prefer the PM to behave, and that's how I would sell myself in terms of my strengths. And similarly, if you're coming from QA, so I also did QA for more than 3 months, I would say, let's say, imagine if I were coming from QA, my strength would be I really, really understand what customers go through. I have probably the most user empathy on on this cross-functional team because I understand the pain point. And as a QA person, I don't just test our feature, I'm also testing end to end on the entire portfolio of products. Versus if you're just on the team, you're just focusing on your feature or on your module. But QA, they have a really wide view, and they understand how one workflow ends and how it picks up, right? They understand integration points. So if I were QA, that's how I would lean into my strengths and my experiences. If I were coming from design, again, I would say I really understand um, user expectations, for example. And that's how I would sell myself in a PM interview.
Yeah, just while closing this question, there are a couple of things that really stood out to me of how to like leverage my experience when I was transitioning. The first one is when I was interviewing with the hiring managers, they actually told me that they have observed me participating in like non-technical discussions with the technical ones that showed the breadth of my knowledge for the product. So if you can like kind of, even if you're like an engineer, if you can kind of have that curiosity of like, hey, how things work with the technical aspects, people do notice that. So you
Great
can
point.
kind of lean into.
Yeah.
And the second part is just basically when you are designing a resume, try to have like the framing of those sentences as if you work with multiple teams, even when you're engineer, that's one form of cross team collaboration. So try to include those tidbits in the resume.
Makes sense. All right, next question. A good approach to tackle product sense questions.
This is amazing and great timing because I'm working some for a template with something very similar. So just for a high level overview, basically product sense can be developed with everyday things, right? It doesn't need to be a technical product. It doesn't need to be a product that is um, very niche, like Apple Vision Pro is not even available right now, but you can build a tech like case study on that. So let's say you use a vacuum cleaner, you have a vacuum cleaner in your home, and you can kind of build an end-to-end case study for that vacuum cleaner of like what is the goal of this vacuum cleaner, what is, how would you kind of like compare it with other vacuum cleaners, how would you go about designing it, what are the problems with it, what do you like and don't like about it. So just kind of spending like a minute when you're using your everyday products. It may sound silly, but it product sense is a muscle that you can develop while even while like kind of walking around and using everyday products. So try to develop that, and then try to formalize it into like your own framework. Get inspiration from other frameworks that are out there. There's obviously like the star, and there's a lot of like other models that you can use. But like try to gain inspiration from all of the frameworks that are out there, and just try to kind of see what works for you. So basically that 15 to 20-minute exercise will kind of develop your product sense, and you'll get like your own approach to tackle product sense question, but have a holistic end-to-end kind of scenario for every product that you use.
I would add that product sense starts with user empathy. You have to really think about how are the users motivated to use your product. So let's take the vacuum cleaner example, right? They don't want to use the vacuum cleaner for the sake of using a vacuum cleaner.
Mhm.
They want the place to be clean. And
Exactly.
why? Why do we want the place to be clean? Let's focus on the feeling of living in a clean space. It's so that we don't feel stressed, there's anxiety, we're in a happy mood. When things are in sync in the physical world, then it affects how we think, it affects how we feel inside the space, right? So we want to get to the space of how do people want to feel like when they use a product or they use a tool, it's because they want to feel a certain way. What is that feeling that they want, and how does this particular product help them get to that feeling? and how can we get to that feeling in other ways. So for example, an alternative vacuum cleaner is a cleaner, like a physical another human being who can clean the house, right? So another solution to the vacuum cleaner is not really a better vacuum cleaner. It's how do you get to the end result, which is the feeling that the users want. um, and of course there are books on this topic that you should definitely read. There's a lot of free resources on YouTube, lots of product sense interview videos. I have some videos. um, the more you do it, the better you will get. Like I have put in more than 100 hours preparing for this type of interview, and I still failed. I failed the Facebook interview twice, even after putting in over 100 hours of prep. But the third time, I passed the interview. So it's I know that I wasn't prepping the right way, but that's a different story. But it's about muscle memory. What Akanksha said, we can develop this muscle, and then over time, it becomes almost like second nature. You're just always thinking, what is the user feeling, or what is that state that they want to be in as a result of using your product.
Definitely. And love that. Basic the user empathy part is so profound and very, very helpful in kind of getting like even for like interviewing, but after you are in the job, user empathy is very important.
Absolutely. And you can apply user empathy to everything you do. So I actually teach this in my product thinking masterclass. You're applying user empathy to how you sell yourself. So it's not necessarily just how do you pitch a product. You can also pitch yourself. You see yourself as a product. Or let's say you're trying to run a meeting on your day to day. You want to apply user empathy because that is how you make the meeting most effective for the people in that room. Or you're trying to run an event, or you're trying to run a brainstorming session. Everything you do, you could apply user empathy to it to make the outcome, the most optimal outcome that you can have.
Absolutely.
Great. Next question. How
Oh,
do you consider what company or more specific industry to apply to for product?
this is a good one. I always get this when I'm talking to people over my mentor calls. So, I think the way that I would kind of approach this is find the thing that closest relates to your current experience or your past experiences. So, for example, I was working as a full stack software engineer at Microsoft in the cloud division with observability. So I cannot go out and apply and try to get calls for a social media company. That wouldn't like yield a lot of results because I did not have any experience in working with a social media company before. Um, it's basically you need to kind of see what your experiences tell you. If internally you see a role available that's closest to your experience, that would yield the fastest response. Even when you go and look for jobs in different companies, you can always see like minimum qualifications and stuff like that, and try to map your experiences with that job description. If that would tell you which like what will the rate of response for your applications. So definitely consider what experiences you have. If you want to build new experiences, like AI is on the rise, and let's say you want to switch to like an AIML product manager, but if you don't have any experience, build that experience in the ways that we were discussing before, like try to get actual like in actual like opportunities to work on AI. If within your job, that's great. You can ask for like projects that are already working on AI and try to be a part of that. As well as externally, you can have like side projects going on, or like work with someone who's already working, like work with a think tank kind of a scenario where people are like doing projects with AI or hackathons, or in any way try to get that experience if you're really interested in approaching like a different different domain altogether?
I would say that let's again apply user empathy to this topic. When a recruiter is recruiting for a specific role, or when a hiring manager is hiring, they always want to hire l- like to like. Like if I have a need, they're going to try to fill that need, and they're not going to fill that need if the candidate doesn't look like they fit that need, right? So when we are trying to switch into product, like that in itself is a barrier because you're not a product manager yet. So you want to make sure that you are a really good fit even without the title. So the best way is you are already a domain expert in whatever that product domain is in. And then you could translate all your other experiences to fit that PM role. That will give you the best leverage in terms of switching into product. Definitely don't switch into someone. Definitely don't try to switch into an area where you have very little expertise in. Otherwise, you just wouldn't get picked from a sea of candidates.
Absolutely agree. And yeah, again, like recruiters are going through like tons of resumes, tons of referrals every day. So it's very difficult to get picked in that scenario.
Yes, so I have a comment from LinkedIn user. Please comment on PM roles within B2C and B2B. Sounds like there isn't much switching between the two spaces. So I'm going to echo what I said earlier. Their hiring managers and recruiters are trying to fit a need. If you don't look like you can fit that need, they're not going to prefer you. Having said that, though, the switch is possible. I myself have switched from B2B to B2C because there are similarities. Because at the end of the day, a PM is a PM is a PM. But that's because I'm already a PM. So when you're switching, you could switch role, you could switch domain, right? But you don't want to switch both at the same time. That is going to be very, very hard. But if I don't have domain expertise, but I'm already in that role, then I could tell a story in why I feel like I could do the job. So you're always trying to portray yourself as someone who can do the job, and you have to prove how you could do it through your storytelling.
Hmm. Yeah, switching between domains and roles at the same time is the hardest.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Um, Another question is product tear down helpful in developing product sense.
I believe yes. I'm not sure if you're talking about like a very specific way of doing product teardown, but like Nancy and I were talking earlier, like trying to see why a user will is using this product in the first place, and trying to kind of relate that with your experience and the people around you, and how that product can be improved or how that user experience can be improved is very essential in developing product sense.
I would say product teardown. Also, it depends on what we mean by product teardown. But it basically uh, gets into the features of the product and why they exist and how they help with a certain goal that the user has. I would say product teardown doesn't really address the beginning of a product sense question, which is why. Um, why is this even a thing, or what is the user trying to do, and what is the goal of the company? So um, but it addresses the second half of a product sense interview, which is about prioritizing the different use cases and prioritizing the different solutions. Okay, let me go back to the questions that were submitted during sign up. This question is how to figure out if career in product management is a good fit for me.
Yeah, I this is a great question because I struggled with it personally while I was pivoting to a PM role. Um, it is very So I would start this question by saying that do not wait for your profile to be perfect before applying for PM roles. You just need to have conviction that you will thrive in that role. This was important to me because I was on a visa and I did not want to like switch careers very frequently. So I thought about this question a lot, and I think the answer, like the way that it came to me, was research. Talk to a lot of different PMs in different companies, because a PM job is not exactly quite the same in each company, because just because the products are different and the user base is different. So try to see how PMs in different companies work. What are their challenges? What do they like about working as a PM versus don't like about working as a PM? And definitely try to kind of gain some experience on how like gain some experience on how a PM kind of what are the skills needed for becoming a PM. So if you see that you have a significant skill gap and you need to kind of work towards like filling that skill gap, if you're motivated, definitely some like, and if you enjoy doing that, definitely being a PM is the right path for you. But let's say there are a lot of people who are like who I work with, who are very happy kind of solving the problems compared to kind of like knowing why the problem exists and digging into the problem itself. So if solving the problem sounds more interesting to you and you do not want to know the background of where that problem came from, maybe this is something that maybe a PM career is something that you should reconsider or rethink. So definitely try to focus on the skills that you want to gain. Try to focus on getting the experience. Like I mentioned before, working at a non-profit really opened doors for me, and I was sure that I wanted to become a PM after that experience. Try to get experience and try to talk to a lot of people. Just to summarize.
I would add, um, I think to determine whether a particular career is a good fit for you is how well do you know yourself? Sometimes we don't spend enough time understanding ourselves. So I would say step zero is self awareness and really reflect on what makes you happy and what your strengths are and what you want to do. So when I was switching into product, I actually didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about this question because it just felt like that's what I wanted. I'm gonna go get it. I didn't really know if I would end up liking it. I just wanted it. But sometimes when there is an inner desire, even though that you don't really know why you desire something, it depends on whether you trust your gut. So for me, I trusted my gut that there is a desire. I know that there's a desire, but I don't really know why. I don't really know whether I would actually like it or not. But I wanted to I wanted to give myself a chance to explore. Right. So that's what I did. So a lot of this question is how well do you know yourself? Do you trust your gut? If there is a desire, do you have the courage to go after your desire, even though you can't really scientifically explain it? And of course, you want to talk to product managers to see what they do. There's a lot of YouTube videos of product managers talking about their day to day. You can observe the PM team, see if what they do is what you might like. But at the end of the day, it's about what you like, and everyone is different.
Mhm. I completely agree. And yes, if you feel that you are not happy with what you look like, what the research is telling you, definitely reconsider not switching to PM. For me, my biggest blocker was a visa. So I did have to think twice, thrice before switching careers, because I am not in a position to switch careers very often, unfortunately.
I'm very proud of you, Akanksha. Okay, next question. Starting as a PM, I'm lost and confused on my work. How to focus on key aspects.
I would like to, I face this myself, and I would like to start that organization is the key. Use all the tools that you have to organize your work. As a PM, you might be handling communications with completely different time zones, completely different teams, and completely different projects. So I use reminders, I use follow ups, to do lists, as well as calendars to manage and like allocate time for what I am doing. I was completely lost in the beginning, Nancy. I would be straightforward. I was lost in how to kind of organize my time, how to what is the priority in my work. So kind of getting that clarity is very important. Like if you're handling like 10 things at once, which one is number 1 priority versus which one is number 10 priority? Work with your manager to identify that and allocate appropriate amount of time for those tasks which are priority. Let's say you have to follow up on, like for example, you have to follow up on 10 emails versus you have to write a PRD versus you have to hop on meetings. So you will allocate like PRD. If PRD is priority 1, you would allocate like a focus time and then just block that time for writing that PRD. I've learned this the hard way, that like blocking time is the only way I can organize my work. So definitely, like first get, like just to summarize, first getting clarity from your manager about your priorities, allocating time, and organizing your tasks is something that has been working for me.
Um, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about how well do you know yourself. So, for example, for me to do deep work, and I consider PRD deep work, it's something that I have to really focus. And I just couldn't really focus during the day because there's so much going on. So the way I did it was I did it at night. I wrote all my documents and I did all my deep work at night. This is not a good this is not good for work life balance, right? And this is not good for all kinds of different reasons. But it worked for me because that is how I work. I I could try to do it during the day, but I just couldn't do it. Like I couldn't do a good job. But if I could just spend 1 hour at night, I could, finish something and be happy with it versus spending 3 hours during the day and not be happy with the output.
Yeah, and
Um,
sorry, go ahead.
no, no, no. But it became really hard after I became a mom because then I just had really, really limited time. So after being a mom, then it was okay, what can I do after 9 p.m.? And then what can I get done before, I don't know, like 5 p.m.? Because after 5 p.m., the 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's just like baby time. I can't do anything. Um, so that's where there's a huge element of knowing yourself really, really well and what type of help you need, and you need to get the help. Akanksha, you said work with your manager, right? So, but how do you work with a manager? You have to ask for help in a very specific way, right? So all of it comes from self-awareness and where do you need help with, and what type of environment is the best for you in terms of optimizing your output and your outcome.
Yeah, and that is very well. I think you can be experimentative with your
Yeah.
focus time, and you can also focus on which task energizes you versus which task drain you. So if you're doing the draining tasks in your focus time, then you're losing out on that focus time.
Yeah.
So basically, after lunch, I am bumped for an hour and I do all my emails and follow ups during that time because that is the task that drain me. But the tasks that energizes me are like talking to users, writing documents, clarifying like PRDs and stuff like that. That is my focus time work. So identify what is your energizer and motivator here.
I love that. I love that. Okay, one last question from the sign up, and then we'll go over the comments to see if we missed any. What makes a successful PM?
I would like to echo what we were talking about earlier about user empathy. If I really believe that PM should not build products for themselves. there are a lot of time when there are like critical decision making points where you have to think about, like, are we going with option A or option B? And there are decisions that are taken like in very short amount of time, and you can go on a whim and say that let's do option B, that sounds the most reasonable to me. But like, what about the user? What about long term? Does it fit in the long term company vision? Is anyone going to use this or not? So having that data, getting that data from user, getting the data from your telemetry or anything that you have like logs or traces, and distilling that into making a product design is extremely useful. And that is, I think, the first step of being a successful PM. Empathy is everything here.
Yes, I completely agree, and I have a very canned answer to this question. So I'm gonna give you the canned answer first, and then I'm gonna like add a layer to it. So, what does a PM do? Let's start there. PM defines the right product, and then build it right with the team. So really, PM just does these two things, and that's it. Build the right product and work with the teams to build it right. So let's now double click on what it means, right? So these two things, that the first one is build the right product. But what does that mean? What does building the right product mean? It means it has to make sense for the user and it has to make sense for the company. So it could make sense for a user, but it doesn't make sense for a company, then it's not the right product. Or vice versa, if it makes sense for the company, but it doesn't make sense for a user, then it's not the right product. But what does making sense for the user mean? So let's go one layer deep. What does making sense for user mean? It means it's solving a very important problem that is unmet. If you miss one of the two levers, it's not the right product for the user. If it's important but it's already met, then right, that's not right. Or it's not important but it's unmet, but again, that's not the right product for the user. Right. So let's go down to the other path. What does it mean to build the right product for the company? From the company perspective, it has to meet business goals and it has to differentiate. If you miss one of these two levers, it's not going to make sense. It's not the right product. So when something addresses business goals, great, but it also has to differentiate. Otherwise, you're just a copycat. Your company will not be successful. So let's go back up for a second. PM has to define the right product such that it makes sense for the user and for the company. And for the user, it has to be an important problem and it has to be unmet. And for the company, it has to be meeting business goals and it has to help the company differentiate. So that is part one of the PM job. And part two of the PM job is you have to work with the teams to build it right after you have defined the right product, right? So working with the teams, you have to be very cooperative. You have to influence because you have no authority. And how do you influence without authority? Is you have to understand how to motivate your team. And there's all kinds of different members of the team, so engineering, QA, design, data, marketing, sales, etc. Right? Every team is motivated slightly differently, and you have to motivate them slightly differently to motivate them to follow the roadmap, right? To follow the strategy, to get their buy-in. Like all of that is through your influential communication skills. So that is a must-have. And then you kind of just rinse and repeat, and you're also learning along the way because we're not going to get everything right in the beginning. We're going to think that we defined the right product and we're going to think that we built it right with the team, but you're not always going to win. And what happens when you don't win? Then your team is feeling low. Then how do you get them motivated again, right? So it's this rinse and repeat cycle of always trying to figure out if you're building a right thing and always trying to figure out if you're building it right.
Mhm.
So if you can sustain that and you just do it over and over again, and as you become more and more successful in your PM career, your scope gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Your product gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So there's more of that going on all at the same time. So after a while, it's going to feel like it's everything happening all at the same time kind of thing. that is what makes you successful as a PM.
And yeah, absolutely, Nancy. I think that's a great like summary of what a PM works on. And I would like to double click on like if you're a PM, not all your products will be successful. You can have all the data in the world, you can have all the like teams and talent in the world, but there will be times when your product fail. But that is another thing that makes a successful PM, in my opinion, because you learn from your experiences there. So I think it's great that you mentioned that.
Great. All right, so we have 4 minutes. Let's go into our comments and answer some questions there.
Product,
And
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, you go.
No, I was just saying product execution interviews can kind of like really vary on like what kind of products you're looking at. If it's definitely if the question is asking about how a product failed, how will you get it back, that is definitely something you should focus on. What happened in the background, what could have kind of went like what went wrong with the product, and then try to see how you can like bring it back. So there are various kinds of questions that can be asked in product execution. um Definitely focus on the metrics, definitely focus on like different aspects of product usage, and then answer with like your ideas and prioritization of what different solutions you can present of what went on with that product in the first place. Yeah, there are different kinds, but I'll let Nancy go first. This is one of the top of mind for my product execution strategy.
Yeah, goal setting and metrics are two very big components to a product execution interview. I have a video on it. I can send you a link later, and it's going to help you. All right. I'm just going up and see.
Mm-hmm.
I think we covered a lot of these comments. Oh, here. Did we answer this one? What kind of projects and skills would make a great product portfolio?
Um, I am not sure what they mean by product portfolio in general, but you can make your personal portfolio with a lot of like case studies for different products. Like for example, Threads is the newest app that has come up, and you can build your portfolio with those like case studies. You can maybe like the skills that you demonstrate there might be different from like what your so basically you can divide your portfolio into like product execution, product design, strategy, and stuff like that. So if I'm my understanding of our portfolio is correct, this is how I would like kind of approach it.
So I don't have a product portfolio, but I have a resume. Um, if you look at my resume, it's very obvious I am a generalist and I'm not a specialist in any domain. And that's because I went from B2B enterprise to B2B startup to B2C big FANG company and then stayed in B2C. So it also depends on if you have a preference on whether you want to be a generalist or a specialist and build it accordingly.
Mhm.
All right, so we are at time. Lastly, I want to mention that Akanksha is opening her calendar for people who want to meet with her after this seminar. So go ahead and scan the QR code if you want to talk to her some more.
Absolutely, and it was so great, Nancy.
Yay!
Talking to you, talking to everyone here, and learned a lot out of this call. I see every opportunity is a learning opportunity for me. So definitely we appreciate you reaching out to me for this.
Yes, I also had a lot of fun. Thank you for coming on to this live stream with me, and for the folks on the on the stream with comments. If you have suggestions or recommendations for future live streams, ping me, leave me a comment. I'm gonna go in and respond to the ones that we haven't been able to. I really like to hear from you, and I hope this live stream was helpful. Great.
Hey,
We'll see
great.
you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye. Thanks for
Thank you,
joining.
Akanksha. Bye.
Thank you, Nancy. Thanks